I am 1 month shy of my 50th birthday, and this story happened when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I used to live in an apartment building that had 12 units occupied by lower to middle class families. Back then, we used to call every adult aunt or uncle, even if they weren't related. Everyone looked out for their neighbors' children as if they were their own. Parents respected each other, and even respected the punishments of our aunts or uncles for whatever transgression they had witnessed. They didn't allow their emotions to excuse bad behavior, like nowadays. We were all just one big family. Back then, it was also common for parents to write a note on a piece of paper and send their kids to the corner store with some money. The day this happened, my mom sent me and my best friend to the store to buy her some cigarettes. The rules were clear. We were only allowed to speak to the shopkeepers, Mr. and Mrs. Anthony, and that was it. If we spoke to anyone else, we would lose the privilege of choosing to buy candy with the leftover change. With the cigarettes in my pocket, my friend and I headed back home, which was about a half a mile away. When our apartment building came into view, we could hear my friend's dad tinkering in the garage. He was likely repairing the lawnmower again. We were so focused on choosing the next piece of candy to devour that we didn't register a car slowing down next to us. "Hey girls, what are you doing out here all by yourselves?" Startled, we turned around and looked toward the car that was next to us. There were 2 men sitting in the front seats. The man riding shotgun was the one speaking to us. Remembering the golden rule, we turned our heads forward and kept walking. "Say, you haven't seen a little puppy around, have you? Can you maybe help us look for him? He absolutely loves little girls, so I'm sure he will come right to you if you call him." My best friend and I made eye contact. Without saying a word, we took off towards home. At that exact moment, the man understood that we weren't going to fall for his obvious ploy, and he opened the car door. Since I was the one right next to the car, the man grabbed my wrist, and I screamed in terror. My friend kept running, screaming for her dad. My friend's father had heard my screams and came running out of the garage with a baseball bat in his hand. When the man saw him charging toward us, he let go of my wrist and got back into his car, and they took off as soon as Uncle Dennis reached me. I was crying by then, completely terrified at what just happened. He picked me up in his arms and held me tight against him while he carried me the rest of the way back home. From that day on, no parents allowed their kids to go to the store alone. I always went with my older brother or one of the older kids in the building. Kids didn't play alone in the yard anymore after that. Someone was always watching, ready to intervene. This was over 40 years ago, and I still get creeped out remembering what he said. "He absolutely loves little girls." I still get a bit nervous whenever a car slows down next to me, and I still don't like being backed into a corner or when someone holds me for too long. I even have a moment of panic when I wake up and I'm stuck in my blanket, unable to move. Needless to say, my own kid never went to the store by himself until he was at least 12 years old. Our family-like community made us feel safe, but even back then, the danger was always there. I was a freshman at a small college called Five Towns in Long Island, New York. It is a performing arts school. In 2020, when the pandemic was still going on, I was majoring in music performance with a minor in audio production. Not many people know about this college. It had to be one of the worst schools in all of New York, and that's saying something. They would accept almost anybody there. The professors and advisors didn't really care about their jobs, and pretty much gave every student a passing grade, regardless of their academic performance, and would allow them to graduate with a master's in being a fucking idiot. I was one of only a few who actually cared about their education, and graduated this past May. I was happy to finally leave that dumpster fire behind. But let's go back to 4 years ago. I started taking classes there in August of 2020. I trusted this college would be a good experience at first. I had heard good things, but I would find out the hard way. Many of the other students there had horrible social skills, and there was a lot of other people just smoking weed all day. I didn't really connect with anyone there, but there was one person in particular that would turn out to be more than just socially awkward. He was a 23-year-old freshman named Jeremy. He was a drama student, not the handsome type from the movies. He was the real deal. Some of the students said he was a creepy guy that I should avoid at all times. Apparently, he had a history of stalking. I had hoped our paths would never cross, but sadly, here I am, writing this story. The first time I met him was in the school's cafeteria. He walked right up to me as if we were friends and started off a conversation by saying, "Hey, my name is Jeremy. What's your name?" I wanted to be very careful because of what other people had told me about his past behavior. I just remained calm and told him my name back and said that it was nice to meet him. The conversation went on for a bit longer. We just talked to each other about what we were majoring in and what our plans were after college. Once my food was ready and placed in a bag, I took my leave. I made a quick exit. He then waved and said, "Goodbye. I'll see you later." I said bye back with a soft voice and a neutral expression on my face. But I did find it very odd he said, "See you later." The way he said it was very unnerving. It made me feel very uncomfortable. I looked back one last time to see him staring at me as I walked outside. It turns out the warnings weren't unfounded. I got serious Jeffrey Dahmer vibes from this dude. I would have to make it clear the next time we saw each other that I have no interest in talking to him. A few days later, I saw him again in the cafeteria. This time a bunch of people were there. He said hello again, and I just said hi back, and was ready to order my lunch and not waste any time talking to this creep. He then started asking me questions about my day and how my classes were going. I just gave him simple one-word answers. He soon asked me a more personal question. "Are you single?" I didn't answer back. I just looked at him like, "Are you serious right now?" Thank God an employee cut in and asked what I wanted to order. I then walked out from the kitchen area to the dining hall, and I heard Jeremy following. He continued his line of questioning. "Hey, I asked if you were seeing anyone." I ignored him once again. It took him about 15 seconds for him to ask, "Why are you ignoring me?" That's when another guy who was waiting for his food jumped in and straight up told Jeremy, "Yo man, back off. She's clearly not interested." Things escalated quickly, and Jeremy responded, "Do you want to fight?" The man replied back, "If you don't leave that girl alone, that's exactly what's going to happen. I am telling you, get lost." The two men stared each other down until our orders were ready. While leaving, we heard Jeremy make a loud grunt and stomp his feet loudly, like a toddler. I then thanked the guy for having my back when things could have gone a lot worse. "No problem. I could tell that he was making you feel uncomfortable. My name is Connor, by the way." We had a nice talk before heading back to the dorms. On an unrelated note, Connor and I ended up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, and we're still together to this day. About 2 weeks went by, and I hadn't seen Jeremy. I was very surprised considering that this whole college had a student body of about 400, probably even less. I made a small friend group with some students in my major, and we would hang out and talk about common interests. Don't get me wrong, I still thought the school was terrible, but I felt more secure now that I had a friend group. But it turns out I celebrated way too early. One night when I was coming back from a bar, I drove back to campus and arrived at around 11 o'clock at night. I wasn't drunk. I was walking back to my dorm when I saw someone standing outside the school's entrance, staring at me. As I got closer, I saw who it was. Jeremy. I felt like he was peering into my soul. I quickened my pace because I was freaking out. Thankfully, I got back to my dorm safely. A few nights later, things went from bad to worse. I was up late studying when I heard a knock at my window. Obviously, it was very concerning for someone to be knocking on my window this late at night. Perhaps it could be one of my friends. Curiosity got the better of me, and I took a deep breath, and in one swift motion, I pulled the curtain back. I saw you know who. I drew the curtain closed right away. How did he know where my dorm was? In a panic, I locked myself in the bathroom. To this day, I still don't know why I didn't call someone. I should have. I guess I was still in denial about the whole thing. I came out of the bathroom 15 minutes later, and when I looked again, he wasn't there anymore. Things got even worse 2 nights later. After coming back from a late-night choir rehearsal, I saw Jeremy pacing around outside the dorms. This time, after unlocking the entry gate, I made a run for it. When I looked back, I could see Jeremy's silhouette chasing me. Unfortunately, the gate failed to close in time, and he managed to stop it and get through. I made a break for the main lobby. I was hoping that an RA would be present there sitting in the booth, but of course, no one was there. There was a sign that read, "Back in 15. I had to act quickly. In the lounge, there was a bathroom door that had a stopper propping it open. So I hid behind it as soon as Jeremy emerged from outside and entered the lobby. I could see him looking for me through the crack of the open door. The scariest part is that he seemed to look directly at the opened bathroom door, but he never walked in or saw me peeking through the side. He then growled, "Damn it," then left. I waited for another minute to see if he was truly gone, and once I knew he was, I booked it the rest of the way to my dorm. The next day I told my friends about how Jeremy had been targeting me, telling them about how he knocked on my dorm's window and chased me. They were all shocked at what they heard, and agreed that someone would walk with me wherever I go from then on. Nothing happened over the next few days, until one night, I was chilling with some friends in my dorm room. We were just hanging out, talking and playing video games. We were suddenly interrupted by a pounding on the window. I then whispered, "Turn off the music. I think I heard something." We then all heard from outside, "Open the door. I need to talk to you." It was Jeremy's voice. We all remained silent and listened. He then spoke again. "Open this door right now, or you will have to face the consequences." Thankfully, both the window and my door were locked. My friends and I stayed cool and called the campus police, which I should have done days before when he first came and knocked at my window. As we were waiting, we heard Jeremy trying to open the door. When that didn't work, he tried breaking it down. "Open this fucking door. Now!" Lucky for us, the campus police arrived just in time. We soon heard a commotion outside. "Get your fucking hands off me. No, don't touch me." Soon after, we heard a knock at the door, and another person's voice said, "Hey, this is Resident Life. Can you open the door? It's safe now. He's gone." We all breathed a sigh of relief. He said that he would contact the school's administration and try to have him removed from the school. I thanked him before he left. I then told my friends that everything was okay now and that they could leave. The next day I got some very exciting news. I opened up an email that said that Jeremy had been expelled. It would not be allowed back on campus. I jumped out of my bed and pumped my fist into the air. I was able to complete my college courses without any more looming threats from Jeremy. I still disliked the college because it was a bad environment all around, aside from my creepy stalker. I have not seen or heard from Jeremy since, and I would like to keep it that way for the rest of my life. My family immigrated to New York from Bangladesh in 1968. It was myself, my wife, our 2 sons, and my wife's brothers and sisters along with their children. When I first came to New York, we moved to a very poor part of the Bronx, since we had very little money. I remember the streets were filthy. A lot of gang violence was in that area. Rats were everywhere, and we had to survive with no air conditioning. My family would experience xenophobia almost every day, but we never allowed it to get to us. What we were focused on was surviving and making enough money to pay the bills. I ended up working 2 jobs, one as a taxi driver and the other being a cashier at a candy store. My wife would find work as well, and my kids would be enrolled in school. As the years went by, it would mostly work out for us. As we saved up our money, we were able to move to a more peaceful environment in a much safer part of the city in Queens. My wife and I still worked our jobs, and my kids were doing well in school. The year was now 1980. One day around 2 or 3 p.m., I was working at the candy store. Customers were coming in throughout the day, but there was someone who had other plans. I remember I was reading a newspaper, waiting for the next customer to come in, when the door chime rang. I looked up to see a man wearing all black. He donned a face mask covering his mouth, a pair of sunglasses, and a beanie. I immediately knew he was there to rob the store. He pulled out a gun and shouted, "Open up the register now!" I was scared for my life. I couldn't move my body as I held up my hands. I was petrified. I tried opening up the drawer, but for some reason, it wouldn't open. The robber then shouted, "Do you want to die? Open up that drawer now before I empty this gun into your head." He then followed that up by calling me a racial slur. Then the unthinkable happened. He pulled the trigger. I thank God that I quickly ducked and moved to the side as the bullet hit my cheek. If I hadn't done that, he would have hit my head directly. I fell to the ground, and the robber came around the counter and forced open the cash drawer. He then placed all the money in a bag and left. After he was gone, about 6 people came rushing into the store to make sure that I was okay. I tried to say that I was fine. However, I couldn't speak due to the wound in the side of my face, which was still bleeding. One woman told me that the police had already been called and an ambulance would be there soon. A short time later, I was taken to the hospital. The bullet in my cheek was not removed until I was lying on the hospital bed. My family was contacted, and they all came to see me right away. Everyone was very upset, crying hysterically, but grateful that I was still alive. The police came to me later that night and were asking questions about what happened in the store. I told them that I didn't know who the thief was, or could even offer a description, as he was wearing a mask. They thanked me for my time and cooperation, and told me they would let me know if they ended up catching the guy. I was able to go home 2 days later and continue on with my life. The owner and the other employees of the candy store were nice enough to pay for my medical bills. Sadly, The identity of the robber was never discovered, and no arrests were made. This was really upsetting to me because I could have died that day, for no reason at all. If he would have given me just a little more time, I would have calmed down enough to get that drawer open for him. Today, my family and I are doing much better financially. My oldest son is a doctor, my younger son is a lawyer, and my daughter, who is the youngest, became a writer. Let me just say this: if you plan on working as a cashier in a big city, pay attention to your surroundings at all times. If a robber comes in and points a gun at you, demanding money, don't hesitate. The kind of people who rob stores aren't known for being patient or even-tempered. I'm just very thankful that I survived. But every time I look in the mirror, I'm reminded of that deadly encounter from all those years ago.
There's always a reason to be afraid.